The cleaning rod clattered against the concrete floor as Staff Sergeant Elena Vasquez watched Master Sergeant Jake Morrison walk past her workstation carrying the Barrett M82 sniper rifle she could disassemble and rebuild in under 2 minutes with her eyes closed. Her hands, stained with gun oil and metal polish, paused their methodical work on the M4 carbine as Morrison disappeared into the advanced marksmanship training facility, a place she hadn't been allowed to enter in 18 months. 26 years old, decorated combat veteran with 3 tours in Afghanistan, and the woman they relegated to scrubbing carbon buildup from rifle barrels while lesser shooters trained with precision weapons, she understood better than the mechanics of her own heartbeat. The irony wasn't lost on her that she spent her days maintaining the very instruments that had once made her legendary among special operations units overseas. "Back to work, Vasquez," called out Sergeant First Class Tommy Rodriguez from across the armory, his voice carrying that familiar tone of casual authority mixed with barely concealed irritation. "Those M16s won't clean themselves, and we've got inspection tomorrow morning." Elena picked up her cleaning rod and returned to the disassembled rifle spread across her workbench, her jaw tightening with each mechanical motion. She'd graduated top of her sniper school class with perfect marksmanship, scores and instructor recommendations that should have secured her a permanent position with elite reconnaissance units. Instead, she spent her days in the basement armory of Fort Henderson, Montana, surrounded by weapons she could operate with surgical precision while watching inferior marksmen receive the advanced training and combat assignments she'd earned. Through blood and excellence. The red flag in her personnel file followed her like a shadow cast by institutional memory. Insubordination. A career-ending refusal to follow direct orders during a classified operation in Kandahar Province, March 2022. The incident that had transformed her from rising star to administrative liability before she'd even returned stateside. She remembered that night with crystalline clarity. Every detail burned into her memory like a brand. Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Thompson had been coordinating a high-value target elimination mission when Elena had identified critical intelligence that contradicted their operational parameters. Through her scope, positioned on Overwatch 300 meters from the target building, she'd observed movement patterns that didn't match their briefing materials. The supposed terrorist safe house showed signs of civilian occupation, children's clothing on a laundry line, family photographs visible through an unshuttered window, an elderly woman tending a small garden in the courtyard. She'd approached Thompson through proper channels, her voice calm and professional over the encrypted radio frequency. "Control, this is Overwatch 7. I need to report possible civilian presence at target location. Request mission parameters review." Thompson's response had been immediate and dismissive. "Overwatch 7, your job is to eliminate targets as designated. Intelligence has been confirmed through multiple sources. Proceed with mission parameters as briefed." "Sir, I'm observing clear indicators of non-combatant presence. Children's items, family activity patterns, domestic routines inconsistent with terrorist operations. I strongly recommend verification before engagement authorization." The lieutenant colonel's voice had turned cold with bureaucratic authority. "Sergeant Vasquez, you're a trigger puller, not an intelligence analyst. Your concerns are noted and dismissed. You have your orders. Execute them." Elena had held her position for another 20 minutes, watching through her scope as the intelligence picture became increasingly clear. The target building housed a family of 7 grandparents, parents, and 3 children under the age of 10. The supposed high-value terrorist target was actually a local shopkeeper who sold vegetables in the nearby market. Someone had provided fatally flawed intelligence, and Thompson was too proud or too invested in the mission's success to acknowledge the error. When the order came to take the shot, Elena had made the decision that would define the rest of her military career. She'd refused to fire on civilian targets, maintaining her position while requesting immediate mission abort through multiple command channels. Her actions had saved 7 innocent lives and prevented an international incident that would have devastated American operations in the region. Instead of recognition for preventing a massacre, Elena had been immediately relieved of duty and subjected to a court-martial for refusing direct orders in a combat zone. The charges were eventually reduced to administrative punishment after the intelligence failure was quietly acknowledged, but the damage to her career was irreversible. She'd been transferred to stateside duty with a permanent notation in her file that made her untouchable for any assignment requiring independent judgment or advanced tactical responsibility. Thompson's still playing general somewhere in the Pentagon. She'd heard Rodriguez joke to Morrison last month. Someone should tell him that real soldiers don't follow illegal orders. The comment had been meant as support, but it only emphasized how her principled stand had been reduced to barracks gossip and political commentary. Every morning at 0500, before the base came alive with training activities and administrative bustle, Elena ran precision shooting drills in her mind. She visualized target acquisition sequences, calculated wind drift and bullet drop for various distances, and mentally rehearsed the breathing techniques that had made her one of the most accurate shooters in special operations. The other armory staff thought she was obsessed with past glory. The active duty snipers thought she was living in denial about her reduced circumstances. Vasquez is still playing sniper, she'd overheard Morrison tell Rodriguez during equipment inventory last week. Someone should explain to her that those days are over. Permanently. Each whispered comment, each dismissive glance, each casual dismissal of her capabilities cut deeper than the last. But buried beneath 18 months of institutional rejection and professional exile, Elena Vasquez knew she possessed skills that transcended politics and bureaucracy. Her hands might be stained with cleaning solvents and gun oil, but her eye remained true, her breathing remained controlled, and her understanding of precision marksmanship remained unmatched by anyone currently carrying a sniper rifle at Fort Henderson. The weapons called to her like muscle memory itself, familiar and undeniable. She understood their mechanisms, their capabilities, their limitations with an intimacy that went beyond technical knowledge into the realm of intuitive expertise. She just needed one opportunity to demonstrate that competence, and administrative punishment couldn't erase years of combat-proven skill. As she continued her methodical cleaning of the M4's bolt carrier group, the base intercom crackled with routine training announcements. Advanced Marksmanship Unit, report to Range 7 for long-distance precision exercises. Repeat, AMU to Range 7 for precision training. Elena paused in her work, listening to the familiar cadence of military communications. Somewhere on the ranges that stretched across Fort Henderson's training areas, snipers were honing skills she'd mastered years before most of them had even enlisted. They were living the professional life she'd trained for, earned, and lost through a single moment of moral courage that had saved civilian lives while destroying her own career trajectory. But she kept cleaning, kept maintaining, kept believing that somewhere in the vast bureaucracy of military justice, someone would eventually recognize that skill transcends politics, that competence outlasts punishment, and that sometimes the most qualified person is the one everyone has decided to forget. The gun oil felt heavy on her fingers as she reassembled another standard-issue rifle, but her Barrett M82 remained locked in her personal storage locker, cleaned, calibrated, and waiting for the moment when she'd finally be allowed to prove what she'd never stopped being. The armory's fluorescent lights hummed overhead like a mechanical heartbeat, counting down the minutes until someone would need her expertise badly enough to overlook the red flag in her file. That moment was approaching faster than anyone at Fort Henderson could have anticipated, and when it arrived, Elena would be ready to show them exactly what they'd been wasting for 18 months of institutional blindness. The hierarchy at Fort Henderson operated like a carefully constructed machine designed to keep people in their designated places. Elena had learned its mechanisms through 18 months of careful observation, watching how information flowed upward through channels that filtered out inconvenient truths and amplified comfortable assumptions. The system rewarded conformity and punished independent thinking, creating an environment where following orders mattered more than being right. Colonel Patricia Hayes commanded the base with the efficiency of someone who'd spent 25 years navigating military bureaucracy without making waves. She'd built her career on steady competence and political awareness, understanding that successful officers managed perceptions as carefully as they managed personnel. Hayes had inherited Elena's situation from her predecessor and chosen to let sleeping dogs lie rather than reopening a case that had already been adjudicated through proper channels. Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Thompson's influence extended far beyond his current Pentagon assignment. His network of allies and protégés throughout the special operations community had effectively blacklisted Elena from any position that might allow her to demonstrate the skills that had once made her invaluable. Thompson understood that admitting his intelligence failure in Kandahar would require acknowledging that a staff sergeant had shown better judgment than a field-grade officer, an admission that would damage more than just his personal reputation. Advanced Marksmanship Unit operated as Fort Henderson's elite precision shooting team, tasked with training designated marksmen and snipers for deployment to active combat zones. Master Sergeant Jake Morrison commanded the unit with the swagger of someone who'd never faced the moral complexities that had destroyed Elena's career. His marksmanship credentials were solid but unremarkable, earned through peacetime training exercises and controlled range environments rather than the chaotic realities of combat operations. Staff Sergeant Danny Costa served as Morrison's deputy, a competent shooter who'd completed 2 tours in Iraq with respectable performance records. Costa possessed the technical knowledge required for advanced marksmanship instruction, but he lacked the intuitive understanding that separated true precision shooters from merely adequate ones. He'd heard stories about Elena's capabilities, but had never witnessed them firsthand, making it easy to dismiss her reputation as inflated legend built on a few lucky shots. Sergeant Marcus Webb represented the new generation of military snipers, educated through advanced training programs and equipped with cutting-edge technology that previous generations could only dream about. Webby's scores on standardized marksmanship tests placed him in the top 10% of active-duty precision shooters, but his experience remained limited to training exercises and simulated combat scenarios. He'd never faced the pressure of real-world operations where split-second decisions carried life-and-death consequences. The culture of the advanced marksmanship unit reflected the broader military tendency to compartmentalize personnel based on current assignments rather than demonstrated capabilities. Elena's relegation to armory duty had effectively erased her combat record from institutional memory, transforming her from decorated veteran to anonymous support staff in the minds of those who'd never served alongside her in operational environments. Sergeant First Class Tommy Rodriguez supervised the armory with meticulous attention to detail and genuine concern for the personnel under his command. Unlike Morrison and his team, Rodriguez had worked closely with Elena for 18 months and witnessed her technical expertise firsthand. He'd watched her identify maintenance issues that other armorers missed, diagnose mechanical problems with surgical precision, and demonstrate an understanding of weapon systems that exceeded anyone else on the base. Rodriguez had served 3 tours in Afghanistan as an infantry squad leader, giving him the combat experience necessary to recognize genuine competence when he encountered it. He'd heard whispered stories about Elena's marksmanship abilities and suspected that her current assignment represented a massive waste of talent, but military protocol prevented him from advocating for personnel outside his direct chain of command. The enlisted personnel in the armory had gradually developed respect for Elena's technical knowledge and professional dedication. Specialist Jennifer Martinez, a recent graduate from Armor Maintenance School, had learned more about weapons systems in 6 months of working alongside Elena than she'd absorbed during her entire formal training program. Elena's patient instruction and willingness to share advanced techniques had transformed Martinez from struggling student to competent technician. Private First Class David Park handled ammunition inventory and range preparation duties, giving him regular interaction with the advanced marksmanship unit during their training exercises. Park had observed the contrast between Elena's methodical competence and the sometimes sloppy practices of supposedly elite shooters who treated their equipment carelessly because they knew someone else would clean up their mistakes. The institutional memory of Fort Henderson contained fragments of Elena's story, preserved in unofficial channels and whispered conversations between personnel who'd served long enough to remember when she'd first arrived. Senior non-commissioned officers recalled her initial assignment reviews, which had praised her technical expertise and recommended her for advanced training opportunities that had never materialized due to the growing influence of her personnel. File notation. Command Sergeant Major Robert Williams had served as the base's senior enlisted advisor for 4 years, making him one of the few people with sufficient authority to challenge personnel decisions if he chose to exercise that influence. Williams remembered Elena's arrival and had quietly monitored her performance through informal channels, but military protocol required him to respect decisions made by previous commanders unless presented with compelling evidence of administrative error. The bureaucratic machinery that governed military assignments operated through multiple layers of review and approval, creating a system where individual cases could become lost in procedural complexity. Elena's situation had been documented, filed, and archived according to proper regulations, making it administratively invisible unless someone with sufficient authority chose to reopen her case for reconsideration. The training schedules that dominated Fort Henderson's daily operations reflected institutional priorities that emphasized standardized instruction over individual expertise. The Advanced Marksmanship Unit followed predetermined curricula designed to produce adequate shooters rather than exceptional ones, creating an environment where Elena's advanced capabilities were irrelevant to current operational requirements. Range facilities stretched across several thousand acres of Montana wilderness, providing diverse terrain and distance options for precision shooting training. Elena had memorized every elevation change, wind pattern, and environmental variable across those ranges during her initial assignment, knowledge that remained unused while supposedly elite shooters struggled with conditions she could have navigated effortlessly. The equipment inventory included some of the most advanced precision rifles available to military units, weapons that Elena could have employed with devastating effectiveness if given the opportunity. Instead, these instruments remained assigned to shooters whose technical competence was adequate but unremarkable, while the most skilled marksmen on the base cleaned their barrels and maintained their mechanisms. The administrative processes that had created Elena's current situation continued to operate with mechanical efficiency, processing personnel decisions based on documentation rather than demonstrated capability. Her file contained all the necessary information to justify her current assignment, making it bureaucratically correct even if operationally wasteful. The political networks that influenced military assignments operated through informal channels that bypassed official review processes. Thompson's continued influence ensured that Elena's name would never appear on promotion lists or transfer orders that might lead to positions requiring advanced marksmanship skills, effectively making her radioactive within the special operations community despite her proven capabilities. The daily routines that governed life at Fort Henderson created an environment where Elena's extraordinary skills remained hidden behind mundane tasks and administrative limitations. She had become invisible in plain sight, Her reputation reduced to whispered stories and half-remembered legends, while the institutional machinery continued to operate as if talent and politics were mutually exclusive considerations in personnel management. The Kandahar province operation had begun like countless others during Elena's third deployment: routine intelligence, standard protocols, and the familiar weight of her Barrett M82 as she established overwatch position on a rocky outcropping 300 meters from the target compound. The March air carried the scent of dust and diesel fuel from the nearby forward operating base, while her spotter, Corporal Jake Sullivan, adjusted the rangefinder and began logging environmental conditions in his field notebook. Wind steady. At 4 knots from the southwest, Sullivan reported through their encrypted headset. Temperature holding at 72 degrees, humidity minimal. Clean shooting conditions, Sergeant. Elena had been operating in Afghanistan's Kandahar province for 8 months, establishing a reputation among special operations units as one of the most reliable precision shooters in theater. Her confirmed kill count stood at 37 enemy combatants, each engagement documented with the clinical precision required by rules of engagement protocols. She'd never missed a designated target, never caused collateral damage, and never failed to provide accurate intelligence from her overwatch positions. The target compound sat in a small valley surrounded by terraced poppy fields and irrigation channels that local farmers had maintained for generations. Intelligence briefings had identified the location as a high-value target safehouse, supposedly harboring a Taliban commander responsible for coordinating improvised explosive device attacks against coalition convoys along Highway 1. The mission parameters were straightforward: eliminate the target and gather intelligence materials for analysis by counterintelligence specialists. Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Thompson controlled the operation from the Tactical Operations Center at Forward Operating Base Chapman, coordinating multiple elements including Elena's sniper team, a reconnaissance unit positioned near the compound's perimeter, and quick reaction forces standing by for emergency extraction if the situation deteriorated. Thompson had built his career on successful completion of complex operations, earning his promotion to field grade officer through competent execution of missions that enhanced his reputation within Special Operations Command. The intelligence package that had triggered the operation included signals intercepts, human intelligence reports, and surveillance photographs that supposedly confirmed the presence of high-value targets at the compound. Multiple sources had corroborated the information through channels that Thompson's staff considered reliable, creating what appeared to be an airtight case for immediate action against a legitimate military objective. Through her scope, Elena began conducting the systematic observation protocol that had kept her alive through dozens of similar operations. She cataloged every detail visible within her field of view, noting structural features, movement patterns, and environmental factors that might influence engagement parameters. Her training had taught her to trust direct observation over intelligence briefings, understanding that ground truth often contradicted information filtered through multiple bureaucratic layers. The first discrepancy appeared within minutes of establishing her position. Intelligence materials had described the compound as a fortified safe house with minimal civilian activity, but Elena observed clear signs of domestic occupation. Children's clothing hung from a makeshift laundry line stretched between 2 buildings, while a small vegetable garden showed evidence of recent cultivation near the main structure's eastern wall. "Sullivan, are you seeing what I'm seeing?" she asked her spotter, adjusting her scope's magnification to examine the compound more closely. "Negative, Sergeant. What's your concern?" "Domestic indicators. Laundry, garden, family activity patterns. This doesn't match our intelligence picture." Sullivan consulted his briefing materials, comparing Elena's observations with the official target description. "Intelligence says this is a Taliban safe house, confirmed through multiple sources. Maybe they're using civilian cover for operational security." Elena continued her methodical observation, documenting details that increasingly contradicted their operational briefing. An elderly woman emerged from the main building carrying a water jug, moving with the slow deliberation of someone performing routine household tasks rather than the cautious alertness expected from occupants of a terrorist facility. Children's voices echoed from somewhere within the compound, their laughter carrying across the valley with the innocent spontaneity that Elena had learned to distinguish from adult conversations. "Control, this is Overwatch 7, she transmitted, through the encrypted frequency linking her position with Thompson's command center. "I need to report possible discrepancies in target identification. Requesting permission to extend observation period for additional intelligence gathering." Thompson's response came immediately, his voice carrying the impatience of someone focused on mission completion rather than tactical complexity. "Overwatch 7, your observation window is limited by operational security concerns. Target identification has been confirmed through multiple intelligence sources. Prepare for engagement on my authorization. Sir, I'm observing clear indicators of civilian presence. Family activity patterns, domestic routines, children's voices. This compound doesn't match our intelligence description." The radio silence that followed Elena's report stretched for nearly 2 minutes, broken only by static and the distant sound of helicopter rotors from coalition aircraft conducting routine patrols in adjacent sectors. When Thompson's voice returned, it carried the cold authority of someone who'd made his decision regardless of conflicting information. "Overwatch 7, intelligence has been verified through proper channels. Your job is target elimination, not intelligence analysis. Maintain position and await engagement authorization." Elena had faced similar situations during her previous deployments, moments when ground-level observations contradicted higher-level intelligence assessments. Military doctrine emphasized the importance of following orders while simultaneously requiring personnel to report information that might affect mission success. The tension between obedience and professional judgment had created ethical dilemmas that defined the difference between adequate soldiers and exceptional ones. Through her scope, Elena watched as a man emerged from the compound's main building, carrying a large basket filled with vegetables. His movements were relaxed and purposeful, suggesting someone preparing for a routine trip to local markets, rather than the furtive behavior expected from terrorist operatives. His clothing was typical of local farmers, practical and worn rather than the tactical gear or religious symbols associated with Taliban fighters. "Sullivan, I count at least 7 individuals in the compound, including elderly and children. This is looking more like a family compound than a terrorist safe house." Her spotter had been monitoring radio traffic between the various elements participating in the operation, noting the increasing pressure from command personnel eager to complete their mission within established timeframes. Sergeant higher-ups are getting impatient. They want this wrapped up before the locals start asking questions about our presence in the area. Elena understood the operational pressures that drove military decision-making in counterinsurgency environments. Extended observation periods increased the risk of compromise, while delayed action allowed targets to escape or reinforce their positions. But her combat experience had taught her that hasty decisions based on flawed intelligence created far greater risks than tactical patience based on accurate ground truth. "Control, this is Overwatch 7. I strongly recommend mission. Abort pending intelligence verification. I'm observing clear indicators of civilian occupation inconsistent with terrorist safe house operations. Request immediate consultation with intelligence personnel." Thompson's response carried barely contained fury at Elena's continued resistance to his operational authority. "Overwatch 7, you are exceeding your mission parameters. Target identification is confirmed. Prepare for immediate engagement on my command." The family man with the vegetable basket had been joined by 2 children, a boy and girl who appeared to be between 8 and 10 years old. They helped load additional produce into his basket while chattering excitedly about something Elena couldn't hear from her distant position. Their interaction displayed the natural affection and casual familiarity of a normal family preparing for routine market activities. Elena had eliminated 37 enemy combatants during her deployment, each engagement authorized through proper channels and executed according to rules of engagement that protected civilian populations. She understood the difference between legitimate military targets and innocent non-combatants, having spent months learning to distinguish between Taliban fighters and local farmers who might appear similar through a rifle scope. Final authorization. Overwatch 7. Eliminate primary target on my command. 3, 2, 1. Execute. The moment that would define Elena's military career had arrived with the clinical precision of bureaucratic decision-making, divorced from ground-level reality. Thompson's order was clear, direct, and legally authorized through proper command channels. Refusing to comply would constitute insubordination under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, potentially resulting in court-martial and imprisonment. Elena kept her crosshairs centered on the man with the vegetable basket, her breathing controlled and her finger resting lightly on the trigger. Through her scope, she could see his face clearly, weathered by years of agricultural work, marked by the patient expression of someone who'd spent his life growing food for his community. This was not the face of a terrorist commander, but of a local farmer whose only crime was living in a compound that had been misidentified by intelligence analysts, operating hundreds of miles from the ground truth. Negative control. I will not engage civilian targets. Requesting immediate mission abort and intelligence verification. The court-martial proceedings at Bagram Airfield had unfolded with the mechanical precision of military justice operating under wartime conditions. Elena sat in the defendant's chair wearing her dress uniform, the ribbons on her chest representing 3 tours of combat service that now seemed irrelevant to the charges being read against her. The concrete walls of the makeshift courtroom echoed with legal terminology that reduced her moral stand to violations of military code. Failure to obey lawful orders of a superior officer. The prosecutor had read from the charge sheet, his voice carrying the dispassionate tone of someone reciting grocery lists rather than career-ending accusations. Willful disobedience in the face of enemy action. Conduct prejudicial to good order and discipline. The defense attorney assigned to Elena's case, Captain Sarah Mitchell, had possessed neither the experience nor the institutional support necessary to challenge Thompson's version of events effectively. Mitchell's previous legal experience involved administrative disputes and minor disciplinary matters, leaving her unprepared for the political complexities surrounding a case that questioned the judgment of a field-grade officer in combat operations. Thompson's testimony had painted Elena as an unstable soldier who'd cracked under combat pressure, someone whose previous successes had created an inflated sense of her own importance that led to dangerous insubordination when faced with difficult orders. His account emphasized her refusal to follow direct commands while minimizing the intelligence discrepancies she'd identified through direct observation. Sergeant Vasquez had been exhibiting signs of combat stress for several weeks prior to this incident. Thompson had testified, consulting notes that Elena suspected had been prepared specifically for the proceedings. Her questioning of intelligence materials and reluctance to engage targets suggested deteriorating judgment that made her unsuitable for precision operations. The intelligence analysts who'd prepared the target package never testified about their sources or methodology. The photographs that had supposedly confirmed terrorist presence in the compound were classified at levels that prevented their introduction as evidence during the proceedings. The human intelligence sources whose reports had triggered the operation remained protected by operational security protocols that made their credibility impossible to evaluate. Elena's combat record, which included 37 confirmed kills and 0 civilian casualties, was deemed irrelevant to the specific charges against her. The medals on her uniform, earned through exceptional performance under fire, carried no weight in legal proceedings focused narrowly on her refusal to follow a direct order from a superior officer during combat operations. The investigation that followed Elena's refusal to fire had been conducted by Thompson's own staff, creating a conflict of interest that went unexamined during the legal proceedings. The team sent to verify the compound's contents had found evidence of civilian occupation, but their report was classified and sealed before Elena's defense attorney could review its contents for potential exculpatory evidence. The compound was indeed occupied by a local farming family, Captain Mitchell had argued during her closing statement, reading from the limited portions of the investigation report that had been declassified for court proceedings. Sergeant Vasquez's observations were accurate, and her refusal to fire prevented a massacre of innocent civilians. The military judge, Colonel Richard Hayes, had spent his career in administrative and legal roles rather than combat operations, giving him limited understanding of the split-second decision-making required in precision shooting scenarios. His interpretation of military law emphasized obedience to orders over individual judgment, reflecting institutional priorities that valued predictable compliance over moral courage. The plea bargain that ultimately resolved Elena's case had been presented as a mercy from a system that could have imposed far harsher penalties. Instead of a federal conviction and military prison sentence, she would accept administrative punishment and reassignment to non-combat duties. Her security clearance would be suspended, her special operations qualifications would be revoked, and her personnel file would carry a permanent notation that would follow her throughout any remaining military service. "You're getting off easy, Sergeant," Colonel Hayes had told her during the final hearing, his tone suggesting that justice was being served through institutional generosity rather than legal precision. "Your record of service has earned you consideration that others might not receive. I strongly recommend you accept this resolution and move forward with your career." Elena's transfer to Fort Henderson had been presented as a standard personnel action rather than punitive assignment, but everyone involved understood the reality of her situation. She would serve out her remaining enlistment obligation in positions that made no use of her specialized skills while serving as an example to other personnel who might consider questioning orders from superior officers. The network of special operations personnel who'd worked with Elena during her deployments had been powerless to intervene in legal proceedings that followed proper military channels. Many of her former colleagues privately agreed with her actions in Kandahar, but military culture discouraged public support for personnel who'd been officially disciplined through court-martial proceedings. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos, who'd served as Elena's spotter on 12 previous missions, had submitted a character statement praising Elena's judgment and professionalism under fire. Sergeant Vasquez saved more lives through her precision and restraint than most soldiers saved through their entire careers, Santos had written. Her refusal to fire on civilians demonstrates exactly the kind of moral courage we should expect from our precision shooters. The character statements, submitted on Elena's behalf, painted a picture of exceptional competence and moral integrity that contrasted sharply with the official narrative presented during court-martial proceedings. Soldiers who'd served alongside her described incidents where her accurate intelligence and precise shooting had prevented friendly fire casualties and minimized collateral damage during complex operations. Master Sergeant Robert Torres, a veteran of 5 combat deployments, had testified about Elena's performance during a particularly dangerous mission near Helmand Province. She identified enemy positions that our intelligence had missed and eliminated threats that would have killed half our team. Torres recalled, "Her tactical awareness and shooting skills were the best I'd seen in 20 years of infantry operations." The institutional machinery that processed Elena's case had operated according to established procedures that prioritized administrative efficiency over individual justice. Her court-martial had been completed within acceptable timeframes. Her punishment had been documented according to proper protocols, and her reassignment had followed standard personnel management practices. Thompson's career had continued its upward trajectory following the Kandahar incident, with his handling of the situation viewed favorably by superiors who valued decisive leadership over complicated moral questions. His promotion to full colonel and assignment to Pentagon staff positions reflected institutional approval of his command philosophy and operational decision-making. The intelligence failure that had nearly resulted in civilian casualties was quietly acknowledged through internal reports that were classified and archived without public disclosure. Lessons learned were incorporated into training programs and operational procedures, but no personnel faced disciplinary action for providing inaccurate information that had endangered innocent lives. Elena's transition to stateside duty had been managed through standard reintegration programs designed to help combat veterans adjust to garrison life. Counselors and administrative personnel treated her case as routine, unaware of the exceptional circumstances that had led to her reassignment and the specialized skills that were being wasted through her current duties. The rumor mill that operated through unofficial channels at Fort Henderson had gradually constructed a distorted version of Elena's story, with details changing through repeated telling until the truth became indistinguishable from speculation. Some versions portrayed her as a hero who'd saved civilian lives, while others suggested she'd suffered a psychological breakdown that made her unsuitable for combat operations. The official version of events, as recorded in Elena's personnel file, presented her reassignment as a routine administrative action, following disciplinary proceedings that had been resolved through appropriate legal channels. Her combat decorations remained valid, but her special operations qualifications had been administratively revoked due to circumstances that were classified and sealed from review. The 18 months that followed her arrival at Fort Henderson had transformed Elena from decorated combat veteran to anonymous support personnel. Her reputation eroded through institutional indifference and bureaucratic efficiency. Her expertise remained intact, but her opportunities to demonstrate that competence had been systematically eliminated through assignment policies that kept her away from precision shooting activities. The psychological impact of professional exile had been compounded by the knowledge that her moral courage had been punished while Thompson's poor judgment had been rewarded. Elena understood that military institutions sometimes prioritized administrative convenience over individual justice, but experiencing that reality personally had created wounds that transcended mere career disappointment. The basement armory at Fort Henderson became Elena's sanctuary and prison simultaneously, a concrete tomb filled with the instruments of war that whispered constant reminders of the life she'd been denied. Every morning at 0445, 15 minutes before the official duty day began, she would descend those worn concrete steps and unlock the heavy steel door that separated her from a world where her skills mattered and her judgment was valued. The routine never varied. First, she would inventory the previous day's weapons maintenance requests, checking each rifle against the detailed logbooks that tracked every component, every repair, every modification performed under her supervision. Her handwriting filled page after page with technical specifications and maintenance protocols that exceeded military standards by margins that would have impressed armament specialists at higher echelons of command. Elena had transformed the mundane task of weapons cleaning into an advanced study of ballistics, metallurgy, and precision engineering. Where other armorers saw routine maintenance, she perceived opportunities to optimize performance characteristics that could mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure in combat environments. Each weapon that passed through her hands received attention that bordered on obsessive, but her combat experience had taught her that obsession and survival were often synonymous concepts. The Barrett M82 sniper rifles assigned to the Advanced Marksmanship Unit received her most meticulous care. She understood every component of these weapons with intimate familiarity, from the complex recoil mitigation systems that made accurate, follow-up shots possible to the precision-machined barrel tolerances that determined their legendary accuracy. Her maintenance logs for these rifles read like technical dissertations, documenting microscopic wear patterns and component degradation with scientific precision. During her off-duty hours, Elena continued studying advanced marksmanship techniques. Through military publications and technical manuals that she purchased with her own money. Her personal library included ballistics references, environmental shooting guides, and tactical handbooks that covered subjects far beyond her current job requirements. She absorbed information about new ammunition types, advanced optic systems, and shooting techniques developed by elite military units worldwide. The muscle memory of precision shooting remained embedded in her nervous system-like genetic code, activated through daily mental rehearsals that kept her skills sharp despite 18 months of forced inactivity. Standing before a mirror in her quarters each morning, Elena would practice the breathing techniques, trigger control methods, and body positioning protocols that had made her lethal at distances exceeding 1,000 meters. Her personal equipment remained maintained to combat standards despite having no authorized opportunities to employ it. The custom rifle case locked in her quarters contained a Barrett M82 that she'd purchased through legal civilian channels, equipped with optics and accessories that represented months of salary and careful research. Every component had been selected for maximum performance, creating a weapon system that exceeded military specifications in every measurable category. Elena's understanding of environmental factors that influenced precision shooting had deepened through 18 months of forced observation and study. She could predict wind patterns across Fort Henderson's ranges with meteorological accuracy, understanding how terrain features, temperature gradients, and atmospheric pressure variations affected bullet trajectory at various distances. Her knowledge had evolved from practical experience to theoretical mastery that surpassed most active duty snipers. The shooting positions that Elena practiced in the privacy of her quarters had been refined through countless repetitions and biomechanical analysis. She'd studied physiological research about muscle tension, respiratory patterns, and neurological factors that influenced shooting accuracy, incorporating advanced techniques into her personal training regimen that remained invisible to her military supervisors. Her ability to estimate range, wind speed, and target movement had been maintained through constant practice during routine activities around the base. Walking between buildings, Elena would mentally calculate distances to various landmarks, estimate environmental conditions, and visualize engagement solutions for hypothetical scenarios. These exercises kept her tactical awareness sharp while appearing to casual observers as ordinary movement between duty locations. The advanced marksmanship units' training schedules were posted on bulletin boards throughout the base, allowing Elena to track their activities and mentally participate in exercises she wasn't permitted to attend. She knew their curriculum better than most of the instructors, having memorized the technical specifications and performance standards for every weapon system they employed during training rotations. Elena's expertise in ballistics calculations had expanded to include advanced mathematical models that accounted for factors like Coriolis effect, spin drift, and atmospheric density variations that influenced bullet flight paths at extreme distances. She could perform these calculations mentally with greater accuracy than most snipers achieved using electronic ballistics computers, but her mathematical skills remained hidden beneath the routine duties of weapons maintenance. The psychological discipline required for precision shooting had been maintained through meditation and visualization exercises that Elena practiced during her limited free time. She understood that marksmanship excellence required mental clarity, emotional control, and the ability to maintain focus under extreme stress. These psychological skills had been honed through combat experience, but preserved through deliberate practice that kept her mind as sharp as her technical knowledge. Her familiarity with different ammunition types had deepened through handling thousands of rounds. During inventory management duties, Elena could identify cartridge specifications by visual inspection, understanding how different bullet weights, powder charges, and manufacturing tolerances affected ballistic performance. This knowledge extended to exotic ammunition types that were restricted to special operations units, but occasionally appeared in her inventory systems. The custom modifications that Elena had learned to perform on precision rifles represented skills that exceeded those of most military armorers. She understood how to adjust trigger mechanisms, modify stock configurations, and optimize barrel harmonics for maximum accuracy. These techniques had been developed through personal study and experimentation with her civilian equipment, but they could have transformed the performance of military weapons if she'd been authorized to apply them. Elena's knowledge of advanced optics systems had expanded through technical literature and online resources that covered developments in military and civilian shooting sports. She understood the performance characteristics of thermal imaging scopes, night vision systems, and laser rangefinders that were employed by elite military units. Her theoretical knowledge of these systems exceeded the practical experience of many active-duty snipers who used them regularly. The tactical applications of precision shooting that Elena had mastered during combat deployments remained fresh through mental rehearsals and scenario analysis. She could visualize engagement solutions for complex tactical problems, understanding how terrain, weather, and enemy capabilities influence sniper employment in various operational environments. Her tactical knowledge remained current through professional publications and military doctrine updates that she studied independently. Elena's understanding of team coordination protocols for sniper operations had been maintained through analysis of after-action reports and training publications that described best practices for precision shooting teams. She knew the communication procedures, target identification methods, and safety protocols that enabled snipers to operate effectively within larger military operations. Her knowledge of these procedures remained theoretical but comprehensive. The equipment maintenance standards that Elena applied to weapons in her care exceeded military specifications by margins that impressed even experienced armorers. Her attention to detail had prevented numerous malfunctions and safety hazards that could have endangered personnel during training exercises. Rodriguez had noted her exceptional performance in official evaluations, but these commendations carried no weight for personnel assignment purposes. Elena's physical conditioning had been maintained through rigorous exercise routines that kept her body prepared for the demands of precision shooting. She understood that marksmanship required specific muscle groups and cardiovascular fitness levels that had to be maintained through targeted training. Her physical readiness remained at combat levels despite having no authorized opportunities to demonstrate these capabilities. The technical innovations that Elena had developed for weapons maintenance had improved efficiency and reliability throughout the armory. Her procedural improvements had reduced maintenance time while increasing quality control standards, but these contributions were viewed as routine job performance rather than exceptional competence that merited recognition or advancement opportunities. Her expertise remained hidden in plain sight, camouflaged by institutional assumptions about personnel capabilities and assignment appropriateness. Elena had become the most qualified precision shooter that nobody was allowed to acknowledge. Her skills preserved through personal discipline and professional dedication that transcended the limitations imposed by bureaucratic decisions made thousands of miles from the armory where she spent her days maintaining weapons for others to use. The emergency alert pierced through Fort Henderson's morning routine at 0634 hours, transforming the base from sleepy administrative efficiency into controlled chaos within minutes. Elena was cataloging barrel wear, measurements on a batch of M4 carbines, when the klaxon's urgent wail echoed through the armory's concrete corridors, followed immediately by the scratchy voice of the base communications officer broadcasting over the facility-wide intercom system. All personnel, this is base operations. We have a code-red emergency situation. Repeat, code-red emergency. All emergency response teams report to designated stations immediately. This is not a drill. Elena's hands stilled on the rifle she'd been inspecting as adrenaline flooded her system with familiar intensity. Code Red meant active threat, imminent danger to base personnel, or catastrophic equipment failure that could result in casualties. She'd heard that particular alarm combination during her deployments overseas, usually preceding events that tested every aspect of military training and preparedness. The radio in Rodriguez's office crackled with increasingly urgent transmissions as details of the emergency began filtering through command channels. Elena moved closer to the doorway, straining to hear the fragmented communications that painted a picture of developing crisis beyond the base's normal operational capacity. Base operations, this is Overwatch Tower 7. We have visual confirmation of the incident. 2 civilian hikers trapped on Devil's Ridge, approximately 800 meters up the north face. Weather conditions deteriorating rapidly with incoming storm system reducing visibility to near zero. Elena's pulse quickened as she processed the tactical implications of the situation. Devil's Ridge was a notorious climbing destination that attracted experienced mountaineers and foolish amateurs in equal measure. The rocky outcropping rose nearly 1,200 meters above the valley floor, featuring technical climbing routes that challenged even skilled alpinists under optimal conditions. In deteriorating weather, those same routes became death traps for anyone caught without proper equipment or escape routes. Tower 7, this is base operations. What's the status of the trapped personnel? Do we have communications with the climbers? Negative. Base operations. No radio contact established. Visual observation indicates one climber appears to be injured, possibly unconscious. Second climber is signaling for assistance, but unable to descend independently due to terrain and weather conditions. Rodriguez emerged from his office with the grim expression of someone who just received very bad news through official channels. His eyes found Elena immediately, recognizing that her combat experience might provide insights into the tactical challenges they were facing. Vasquez, you need to hear this. Search and Rescue is reporting that standard helicopter extraction protocols are impossible due to wind shear and visibility conditions on the ridge. Ground-based rescue teams estimate minimum 6 hours to reach the trapped climbers using conventional mountaineering techniques. Elena understood the mathematical brutality of the situation without requiring additional explanation. Weather reports had been predicting a severe storm system that would bring freezing rain, high winds, and near-zero visibility to the mountainous terrain surrounding Fort Henderson. 6 hours of exposure to those conditions would likely kill both climbers, regardless of their current medical status or cold weather preparation. What about alternative extraction methods? She asked, her tactical mind automatically analyzing possible solutions to the seemingly impossible rescue scenario. Advanced Marksmanship Unit has been tasked with providing overwatch and communication support, Rodriguez replied, consulting notes he'd scribbled during radio communications with base operations. Morrison's team is setting up observation positions to maintain visual contact with the climbers and coordinate with rescue personnel. The irony of the situation struck Elena with painful clarity. Morrison's snipers would be employing precision optics and long-range observation techniques that she could have executed with superior effectiveness, but institutional policies prevented her from participating in operations that required the specialized skills she developed through years of combat experience. Base operations, this is AMU leader. We're establishing overwatch positions at grid coordinates, November 774 Alpha. Current weather conditions are marginal for precision observation. Wind speeds gusting to 45 knots with intermittent visibility dropping below 50 meters. Elena moved to the armory's small window that provided a limited view of the mountainous terrain rising beyond Fort Henderson's administrative buildings. Even from ground level, she could observe the storm system approaching with meteorological violence that would make any rescue operation extraordinarily dangerous for both the trapped climbers and their potential rescuers. Tower 7, this is AMU leader. We're having difficulty maintaining consistent visual contact with the trapped personnel. Weather conditions are exceeding our operational parameters for sustained observation. The radio transmissions painted an increasingly desperate picture as multiple agencies struggled with the limitations imposed by terrain, weather, and equipment capabilities. Elena listened to the communications with growing frustration, recognizing tactical solutions that weren't being considered due to institutional assumptions about personnel qualifications and assignment restrictions. Base operations, this is Mountain Rescue Team Leader. Our ground-based approach is being hampered by rockfall and ice conditions on the standard access routes. Weather window is closing rapidly. We need alternative extraction methods or we're going to lose both climbers. Rodriguez looked at Elena with the expression of someone who understood the cruel mathematics of bureaucracy versus capability. Vasquez, I know what you're thinking, but there's no way command is going to authorize your participation in this operation. Your file restrictions prevent assignment to any duties requiring independent judgment in emergency situations. Elena understood the regulatory constraints that governed her current assignment, but she also understood that 2 human beings were going to die while qualified personnel were prevented from attempting rescue operations due to administrative policies that prioritized institutional convenience over mission effectiveness. Sergeant Rodriguez, what if there was a way to provide precision shooting support without officially participating in the rescue operation? Technical assistance that could be provided through existing armory responsibilities? Rodriguez studied her face carefully, recognizing the tactical intelligence that had made Elena legendary among special operations personnel. What kind of technical assistance are you thinking about? The AMU is struggling with environmental conditions that are degrading their observation capabilities. Standard military optics aren't designed for the extreme weather conditions they're encountering on Devil's Ridge, but there are specialized techniques and equipment modifications that could extend their effective range and improve target acquisition under adverse conditions. The radio crackled with another update that emphasized the growing desperation of the rescue efforts. Base operations, this is AMU leader. We've lost visual contact with the trapped personnel due to weather conditions. Current observation position is untenable for sustained operations. Requesting permission to relocate to alternative overwatch site. Elena's mind raced through tactical solutions that drew upon years of combat experience in similar environmental conditions. She'd operated precision weapon systems in Afghanistan's mountainous terrain during winter conditions that approximated the challenges currently facing Fort Henderson's rescue teams. Her knowledge of advanced shooting techniques and specialized equipment could provide capabilities that weren't available through standard military channels. Rodriguez, the AMU team is using standard issue optics that weren't designed for extreme weather observation. There are civilian hunting scopes in our inventory that have superior performance characteristics under adverse conditions. Technical modifications that could be made to their current equipment that would extend their effective observation range. Rodriguez considered Elena's suggestion with the careful attention of someone who understood both the tactical potential and administrative risks involved in unauthorized equipment modifications. Military regulations governing weapons and optics modifications were strictly enforced, but emergency situations sometimes required creative interpretations of existing policies. Base operations, this is Mountain Rescue Team Leader. Ground conditions are deteriorating beyond safe operational parameters. Ice and rockfall hazards are preventing standard approach routes. We need immediate alternative extraction methods or authorization to abort rescue operations. The communications painted a picture of multiple rescue teams reaching the limits of their capabilities while 2 human beings remained, trapped in conditions that were rapidly becoming unsurvivable. Elena understood that conventional rescue methods were failing and time was running out for solutions that operated within normal institutional parameters. Sergeant Rodriguez, there's another factor that hasn't been considered. The trapped climbers are positioned at a location that might be accessible to precision delivery systems if someone with advanced ballistics knowledge calculated the trajectory parameters correctly. Rodriguez's eyebrows rose as he considered the implications of Elena's suggestion. Precision delivery systems could theoretically transport emergency supplies, communications equipment, or survival gear to locations that were inaccessible through conventional methods. But such operations required mathematical calculations and technical expertise that exceeded the capabilities of most military personnel. Vasquez, are you suggesting that someone could deliver emergency supplies to the trapped climbers using precision shooting techniques? I'm suggesting that the physics and ballistics knowledge required for such an operation exist within this armory, even if the institutional authority to implement those capabilities doesn't. The radio transmitted another desperate update that emphasized the closing window for successful rescue operations. All stations, this is base operations. Weather conditions are expected to deteriorate beyond operational limits within the next 90 minutes. All rescue teams are advised that extraction window is closing rapidly. Elena looked at Rodriguez with the steady gaze of someone who'd faced similar impossible situations and found solutions through competence rather than compliance. The 2 climbers on Devil's Ridge were going to die unless someone was willing to exceed their assigned duties and demonstrate capabilities that had been bureaucratically erased but never actually eliminated. Sergeant Rodriguez, I can save those people, but I'm going to need authorization that goes beyond normal armory operations. Rodriguez stared at Elena for a long moment, his weathered face reflecting the internal struggle between military protocol and human conscience. The radio continued broadcasting increasingly desperate updates from the rescue teams, each transmission emphasizing the closing window for successful extraction of the trapped climbers. Finally, he reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a set of keys that Elena recognized as access authorization for the specialized equipment storage lockers. Vasquez, I'm about to make a decision that could end both our careers, Rodriguez said, his voice carrying the weight of someone crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. But those people are going to die if we follow regulations while they freeze to death on that ridge. Elena felt electricity surge through her nervous system as Rodriguez unlocked the secure storage area where the base's most advanced precision equipment was maintained. Inside the climate-controlled environment, specialized rifles and optic systems waited in pristine condition, including several Barrett M82 sniper rifles equipped with advanced ballistic computers and thermal imaging. Scopes that exceeded anything currently deployed with the advanced marksmanship unit. What exactly are you proposing? Rodriguez asked, pulling out a rifle case that contained one of the most accurate weapon systems available to military personnel. And don't give me any theoretical discussions about ballistics calculations. I need to know exactly what you think you can accomplish that trained rescue teams can't. Elena's hands moved over the rifle with the fluid familiarity of someone greeting an old friend after years of separation. The Barrett M82 felt like an extension of her nervous system, its weight and balance triggering muscle memory that had been preserved through 18 months of forced inactivity. Every component of the weapon was exactly where her hands expected to find it, despite regulations that had prevented her from touching such equipment since her reassignment. The trapped climbers are positioned at approximately 800 meters from the base of Devil's Ridge, at an elevation that puts them roughly 1,200 meters above our current position. Elena began, her voice taking on the clinical precision of someone calculating solutions to complex tactical problems. Standard rescue protocols assume ground-based approach routes, but there's an alternative delivery method that nobody's considering. Rodriguez listened intently as Elena explained her analysis of the terrain features, wind patterns, and ballistic trajectories that could enable precision delivery of emergency supplies to the trapped climbers. Her calculations incorporated factors that exceeded the mathematical capabilities of most military personnel, drawing upon years of combat experience and advanced study of ballistics principles. I can deliver a survival package containing emergency medical supplies, communication equipment, and shelter materials directly to their position using precision shooting techniques. Elena continued, removing the rifle's bolt and inspecting the chamber with practiced efficiency. The ballistic computer on this system can calculate trajectory parameters for the environmental conditions, but someone needs to make the shot with accuracy that allows for zero margin of error. The implications of Elena's proposal struck Rodriguez with the force of tactical revelation. Instead of attempting dangerous ground-based rescue operations that were being defeated by weather and terrain, they could deliver critical supplies that would keep the climbers alive until conditions improved. Enough for conventional extraction methods to succeed. Vasquez, are you telling me you can shoot emergency supplies to people trapped on a cliff face 800 meters away in conditions that are defeating our most experienced rescue teams? I'm telling you I can hit a target the size of a dinner plate at that distance in these environmental conditions, and I can do it with a projectile designed to deploy emergency supplies on impact rather than cause destruction. Elena's voice carried absolute confidence, built upon years of combat experience and technical mastery that had never been diminished by administrative punishment. Rodriguez understood that Elena's proposal represented their best chance of keeping the trapped climbers alive until weather conditions improved enough for conventional rescue operations. The alternative was accepting that 2 human beings would die while qualified personnel were prevented from attempting rescue operations due to bureaucratic restrictions that prioritized regulatory compliance over mission success. What kind of specialized ammunition are you talking about? Standard military rounds aren't designed for emergency supply delivery. Elena moved to another storage cabinet that contained experimental ammunition types developed for special operations forces. Among the various specialized rounds were projectiles designed for non-lethal applications, including delivery systems that could transport small packages across significant distances with pinpoint accuracy. These are prototype rounds developed for special operations units that need to deliver communications equipment or emergency supplies to personnel in locations inaccessible through conventional methods. She explained, examining the specialized ammunition with technical expertise that impressed Rodriguez despite his years of armory experience. The projectile contains a deployable payload section that opens on impact, dispersing contents across a predetermined pattern. The radio crackled with another update that emphasized the deteriorating situation on Devil's Ridge. Base operations. This is Mountain Rescue Team Leader. We've been forced to retreat from our current position due to dangerous rockfall conditions. Weather system is intensifying beyond our operational capabilities. Recommend consideration of alternative extraction methods. Rodriguez made his decision with the decisive clarity of someone who'd served long enough to understand when regulations had to yield to reality. Vasquez, I'm giving you unofficial authorization to attempt emergency supply delivery using specialized equipment and techniques. This conversation never happened, and if anyone asks, you were conducting routine maintenance on precision weapon systems. Elena felt 18 months of suppressed capability surge through her system like electricity, finding a conductor after years of insulation. Her hands moved across the rifle's components with surgical precision, conducting system checks and calibration. procedures that had been forbidden since her reassignment, but never forgotten through daily mental rehearsals. I'll need access to the roof-mounted observation platform to establish a proper shooting position with clear line of sight to the target area, Elena said, her voice taking on the professional tone of someone coordinating complex tactical operations. The ballistic calculations require precise measurement of environmental factors, including wind speed, atmospheric pressure, and temperature gradients. Rodriguez escorted Elena through security, checkpoints, and access control procedures that he'd never imagined using for unauthorized personnel, but the desperate radio transmissions from rescue teams provided moral justification for actions that violated multiple military regulations. They climbed concrete stairwells to reach the base's highest observation platform, where Elena could establish the shooting position necessary for precision delivery operations. The view from the observation platform revealed the full scope of the tactical challenge facing rescue operations. Devil's Ridge rose like a geological monument to the limitations of human capability, its rocky faces disappearing into storm clouds that reduced visibility to near zero. Through breaks in the weather, Elena could observe tiny figures clinging to the cliff face at distances that would have challenged even experienced mountaineers under optimal conditions. Elena deployed the rifle's bipod and adjusted the scopes. Magnification to maximum power, using advanced optics to penetrate weather conditions that were defeating standard observation equipment. Through the thermal imaging system, she could identify the heat signatures of the trapped climbers and assess their current medical status based on movement patterns and body positioning. Target acquired, she reported to Rodriguez, who was monitoring communications between various rescue teams through a portable radio. 2 personnel confirmed at grid coordinates that match previous reports. One appears to be injured and possibly hypothermic based on reduced movement patterns. Second individual is conscious and responsive, but showing signs of exposure-related distress. Elena began the ballistic calculations that would determine whether precision supply delivery was technically feasible under current environmental conditions. Her mathematical analysis incorporated wind speed measurements, atmospheric density variations, and trajectory adjustments that accounted for the complex terrain features between her position and the target area, the specialized ammunition required, modifications to standard loading procedures. But Elena's technical expertise enabled her to configure the delivery system for maximum accuracy and payload deployment effectiveness. Each round represented a potential lifeline for the trapped climbers, but success required precision that exceeded the capabilities of anyone except the most skilled marksmen. Rodriguez, I need you to coordinate with base operations to ensure no aircraft or personnel movements interfere with the projectile flight path during the delivery attempt, Elena said, settling into the shooting position that had made her legendary among special operations forces. This shot requires environmental conditions that won't be available much longer. Through her scope, Elena could see the trapped climbers huddled against the cliff face in positions that revealed their desperate situation. Their survival depended upon someone willing to exceed their assigned duties and demonstrate capabilities that had been administratively erased but never actually eliminated. The moment of truth had arrived 18 months after her last authorized shot in combat, but Elena's skills remained intact despite bureaucratic attempts to eliminate them through institutional indifference. Her finger found the trigger with familiar precision as she prepared to prove that competence transcended politics and capability exceeded regulations. Elena's breathing settled into the controlled rhythm that had kept her alive through dozens of combat engagements, each exhale releasing tension while maintaining the muscular stability required for precision shooting at extreme distances. The Barrett M82's familiar weight pressed against her shoulder like an old friend, its precision machined components responding to her touch with mechanical sympathy that transcended the 18 months of forced separation. Through the advanced Optic system. She could observe microscopic details of the trapped climbers, situation that were invisible to rescue teams operating with standard equipment. The injured climber showed signs of severe hypothermia, his body position indicating possible head trauma from rockfall or climbing equipment failure. His companion maintained consciousness but displayed the erratic movements characteristic of early-stage exposure, suggesting their survival window was measured in minutes rather than hours. Wind speed holding steady at 32 knots from the northwest. Elena reported to Rodriguez, who was monitoring environmental conditions through base weather stations and coordinating with rescue operations through encrypted radio frequencies. Atmospheric pressure stable. Temperature gradient consistent with ballistic computer calculations. Environmental factors are within acceptable parameters for precision delivery. The specialized ammunition required final configuration adjustments. That drew upon Elena's advanced knowledge of ballistics engineering and payload deployment systems. The projectile contained emergency medical supplies, chemical heating packs, communication equipment, and shelter materials compressed into a package, designed to deploy across a predetermined pattern upon impact with the target area. Elena's mathematical calculations incorporated factors that exceeded the computational capabilities of standard military ballistics computers. Her analysis accounted for the Coriolis effect at this latitude, spin drift characteristics of the specialized projectile, and atmospheric density variations caused by altitude and weather conditions. The trajectory solution required precision. That allowed for zero margin of error, understanding that miscalculation would send critical supplies into inaccessible terrain while the climbers died from exposure. Base operations, this is Mountain Rescue Team Leader, crackled through Rodriguez's radio. We're observing increasing rockfall activity on the north face. Current weather conditions are creating structural instability that's preventing any ground-based approach. Climbers appear to be losing consciousness. Survival window closing rapidly. Elena adjusted the rifle's position by millimeters, fine-tuning her shooting angle to account for the complex trajectory required to deliver supplies to the narrow ledge where the climbers were trapped. The precision shooting techniques she'd mastered during combat operations had been refined through years of study and practice, creating capabilities that exceeded those of most military marksmen by significant margins. The ballistic computer displayed trajectory data that confirmed Elena's manual calculations, but the final shot would depend upon human judgment and technical skill that couldn't be programmed into electronic systems. The specialized projectile would follow a ballistic arc that carried it through multiple wind layers, altitude changes, and atmospheric conditions before deploying its payload at precisely the right moment. Rodriguez, I need you to coordinate radio silence for 60 seconds starting on my mark, Elena said, settling deeper into the shooting position that aligned every component of the weapon system with mathematical precision. Any electromagnetic interference could affect the payload deployment timing. Through her scope, Elena could observe the desperate hand signals being transmitted by the conscious climber, whose movements indicated growing panic as rescue efforts appeared to be failing. The injured climber remained motionless in a position that suggested unconsciousness or worse, emphasizing the critical nature of immediate supply delivery. Elena's finger found the trigger with the delicate touch of someone who understood that excessive pressure would degrade accuracy at extended ranges. The trigger mechanism had been precisely adjusted to break at exactly 3.5 pounds of pressure, providing the consistency required for precision shooting under combat conditions. "Mark," Elena announced, beginning the final sequence. That would either save 2 lives or demonstrate the limitations of even exceptional skill when confronted with impossible conditions. Her breathing stopped at the natural respiratory pause. Her heart rate slowed through conscious control, and her visual focus narrowed to encompass only the target area visible through the scope's crosshairs. The Barrett M82's recoil system absorbed the massive energy generated by the .50 caliber cartridge. But Elena's body position and shooting technique distributed the remaining forces across her skeletal structure in ways that maintained target alignment throughout the firing sequence. Years of combat experience had taught her to manage recoil, forces that would have knocked untrained shooters off target. The specialized projectile left the rifle's muzzle at velocity exceeding 2,700 feet per second, beginning a ballistic journey that would cover 800 meters of horizontal distance while climbing nearly 400 meters of vertical elevation. Elena tracked the projectile's flight path through her scope, observing its trajectory against the storm-darkened sky with professional satisfaction. "Shot fired," Elena reported to Rodriguez, who immediately began coordinating with rescue teams to observe impact and payload deployment. The projectile would require approximately 2.5 seconds to reach the target area, during which Elena maintained her shooting position to observe results and prepare for potential follow-up shots if necessary. The projectile struck the cliff face 18 inches from the trapped climber's position, deploying its payload across the narrow ledge with mechanical precision that scattered emergency supplies within arm's reach of both personnel. Chemical heating packs activated automatically upon exposure to air, providing immediate warmth that could prevent fatal hypothermia during the remaining rescue period. Base operations. This is Overwatch Tower 7, transmitted through Rodriguez's radio with excitement that broke through professional communications protocols. "We have visual confirmation of supply delivery to trapped personnel. Emergency materials deployed successfully at target location. Climbers are responding to delivered supplies." Elena felt satisfaction surge through her nervous system as she observed the conscious climber gathering emergency materials and attempting to revive his injured companion using medical supplies that had been delivered with surgical precision. The communication equipment included in the payload would enable direct contact between rescue teams and trapped personnel for the first time since the emergency began. "Tower 7. This is trapped climber," came a weak voice through emergency radio frequencies as the delivered communication device was activated. "We have received emergency supplies. Injured climber is responsive, but requires immediate medical evacuation. Current position is stable, but weather conditions are deteriorating." Rodriguez looked at Elena with an expression that combined professional admiration with institutional concern about the unauthorized operation they just conducted. The successful supply delivery had probably saved 2 lives, but it had also involved massive violations of military regulations that could result in court-martial proceedings for both personnel involved. "Vasquez, that was the most incredible shot I've witnessed in 23 years of military service," Rodriguez said, his voice carrying genuine awe at Elena's demonstration of precision shooting capabilities. "But we need to secure this equipment and develop our story for the inevitable investigation that's going to follow this incident." Elena began disassembling the rifle system with the same methodical precision she'd employed during the shooting sequence, understanding that evidence of unauthorized weapons usage needed to be minimized before base security personnel began asking questions about how emergency supplies had been delivered to inaccessible terrain. "Base operations. This is Mountain Rescue Team Leader. Emergency supplies have stabilized the trapped personnel. Weather window appears to be improving slightly. Requesting immediate helicopter extraction attempt while conditions permit." The radio transmissions painted a picture of renewed hope as rescue operations regained momentum following Elena's successful supply delivery. The emergency materials had bought critical time that enabled conventional rescue methods to succeed, transforming a potential double fatality into a recoverable situation. Elena felt 18 months of suppressed capability flowing through her system like water finding its natural channel after artificial obstruction. The successful shot had demonstrated that her skills remained intact, despite bureaucratic attempts to eliminate them through administrative punishment and institutional indifference. Rodriguez, the investigation is going to focus on how specialized ammunition disappeared from inventory control and how precision delivery was accomplished, using equipment that's supposedly restricted from my access, Elena said, securing the rifle components in their designated storage positions. What's our explanation for unauthorized supply delivery that saved 2 lives? Rodriguez considered the question with the tactical intelligence of someone who'd spent decades navigating military bureaucracy while accomplishing missions that exceeded official authorization. Vasquez, sometimes the system has to be reminded that mission success matters more than regulatory compliance. Those climbers are alive because someone was willing to exceed their assigned duties. Through the observation platform's windows, Elena could see helicopter rotors spinning up as rescue teams, prepared for extraction operations that had been made possible by her unauthorized actions. The trapped climbers would survive because someone had demonstrated capabilities that transcended institutional limitations. The successful rescue operation would generate questions about how impossible supply delivery had been accomplished. But Elena understood that competence always created complications for systems designed to minimize individual initiative. Her shot had saved 2 lives while simultaneously proving that 18 months of bureaucratic punishment hadn't eliminated the skills that made her exceptional. The investigation began within hours of the successful rescue operation, launched by base security personnel who recognized that specialized ammunition had been expended without proper authorization and precision. Delivery capabilities had been demonstrated by personnel supposedly restricted from such activities. Colonel Patricia Hayes arrived at the armory at 14:30 hours with a team of investigators whose expressions suggested they expected to uncover serious violations of military regulations and weapons control protocols. Sergeant Rodriguez, I need a complete accounting of all specialized ammunition inventory for the past 48 hours, Colonel Hayes announced, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to immediate compliance with investigative demands. We have reports of unauthorized weapons discharge and unexplained supply delivery that requires thorough examination through proper channels. Rodriguez maintained the composed demeanor of someone who'd prepared for inevitable scrutiny following unauthorized operations that had saved lives while violating regulations. His inventory log showed careful documentation of routine maintenance activities and standard equipment checks, but the specialized ammunition used for the rescue delivery had been recorded as expended during authorized testing procedures. Ma'am, all ammunition expenditures are documented according to proper protocols, Rodriguez replied, presenting logbooks that showed meticulous record-keeping designed to withstand administrative review. Specialized rounds were expended during authorized ballistics testing to verify performance characteristics of experimental delivery systems. Elena continued her routine weapons maintenance duties while investigators examined inventory records and questioned armory personnel about unusual activities during the rescue operations. Her movements remained calm and professional, despite understanding that her unauthorized actions had created institutional complications that could result in additional disciplinary measures. The radio communications logs from the rescue operation painted a confusing picture for investigators who couldn't identify the source of precision supply delivery that had enabled successful extraction of the trapped climbers. Multiple rescue teams had reported observing supply deployment, but none could explain how emergency materials had been delivered to inaccessible terrain with surgical accuracy. Base operations reported successful supply delivery to trapped personnel, but no rescue team claims responsibility for that delivery, Colonel Hayes told her investigation team, consulting reports that described impossible achievements through unidentified means. Someone accomplished precision delivery that exceeded the capabilities of our specialized rescue units, and I want to know who and how. Master Sergeant Morrison and his advanced marksmanship unit were subjected to intensive questioning about their activities during the rescue operation, but their statements confirmed that environmental conditions had prevented effective long-range observation or precision shooting support. Morrison's team had been forced to abandon their overwatch positions due to weather conditions that exceeded their operational capabilities. Colonel, the AMU was unable to maintain visual contact with the trapped personnel due to extreme weather conditions, Morrison reported, his voice carrying frustration at his unit's inability to contribute meaningfully to rescue operations. Wind speeds and visibility problems prevented any precision shooting support or extended observation activities. The investigation team interviewed personnel from multiple rescue units, searching for explanations of supply delivery that had been accomplished through methods that exceeded conventional rescue capabilities. Mountain rescue specialists confirmed that ground-based delivery to the trapped climber's position had been impossible due to terrain and weather conditions that prevented access through standard mountaineering techniques. No rescue team had equipment or personnel positioned for precision delivery to that location, testified Sergeant First Class Michael Santos, the mountain rescue team leader who'd coordinated ground-based operations during the emergency. The supply delivery appeared to come from an elevated position with clear line of sight to the target area, but we couldn't identify the source. Elena's personnel file became a focal point of investigative attention as Colonel Hayes recognized that the precision delivery capabilities demonstrated during the rescue operation matched the specialized skills of personnel with advanced marksmanship training. Elena's combat record indicated exactly the kind of ballistics expertise that would be required for successful supply delivery under extreme environmental conditions. Sergeant Vasquez possesses advanced precision shooting qualifications from her previous assignments, Colonel Hayes noted during a private briefing with her investigation team. Her technical capabilities could theoretically enable the kind of precision delivery that was accomplished during yesterday's rescue operation, but regulatory restrictions prevent her from accessing the equipment necessary for such activities. The physical evidence from the rescue site provided additional complications for investigators attempting to reconstruct the sequence of events that had enabled successful supply delivery. The specialized projectile components recovered from the cliff face indicated ammunition types that were restricted to experimental programs and special operations units. Ballistics analysis of the projectile fragments revealed characteristics consistent with precision delivery systems designed for special operations forces, but the ammunition types weren't officially assigned to any unit currently stationed at Fort Henderson. The technical specifications suggested capabilities that exceeded those of standard military rescue equipment. The projectile analysis indicates specialized ammunition designed for non-lethal precision delivery applications, reported the base's weapons technical officer during the investigation briefing. These rounds aren't part of standard military inventory and would require special authorization for acquisition and deployment. Elena's routine maintenance logs showed consistent documentation of equipment checks and inventory management that appeared normal under casual inspection. However, investigators with advanced technical knowledge recognized that her maintenance procedures exceeded standard military protocols by margins that suggested exceptional competence and attention to detail. The timing analysis of events during the rescue operation revealed a narrow window during which precision delivery could have been accomplished, requiring someone with immediate access to appropriate equipment and the technical skills necessary for complex ballistics calculations. Under extreme time pressure, the investigation team recognized that very few personnel possessed the combination of access, expertise, and opportunity necessary for successful supply delivery. Colonel Hayes conducted individual interviews with armory personnel, searching for inconsistencies in their accounts of activities during the rescue operation. Elena's interview was scheduled for 1600 hours, providing time for investigators to review technical evidence and prepare questions designed to identify unauthorized weapons usage. Sergeant Vasquez, I need you to account for your activities during yesterday's emergency rescue operation, Colonel Hayes began, her tone suggesting that this interview represented more than routine information gathering. Specifically, I want to understand your knowledge of specialized ammunition inventory and any unusual maintenance activities you might have observed. Elena's responses maintained the professional composure of someone whose conscience was clear. Despite technical violations of regulations that had been necessary to save lives, her account emphasized routine maintenance duties and standard inventory procedures, avoiding details about unauthorized equipment access or precision shooting activities. Ma'am, I was conducting routine weapons maintenance during the rescue operation. My duties included inventory management and equipment checks according to standard armory protocols. I monitored radio communications to stay informed about base operations, but my activities remained within normal job parameters. The investigation's technical analysis revealed that successful supply delivery required mathematical calculations and ballistics expertise that exceeded the capabilities of most military personnel. The precision achieved during the delivery suggested someone with advanced training in long-range shooting and specialized knowledge of projectile characteristics under extreme environmental conditions. Evidence from base security cameras showed normal personnel movements during the rescue operation, but the camera coverage didn't extend to all areas where precision shooting positions might have been established. Investigators recognized that someone with detailed knowledge of base security systems could have avoided detection during unauthorized activities. The successful rescue of both trapped climbers created political complications for investigators, who understood that disciplinary action against personnel responsible for saving lives would generate negative publicity and institutional embarrassment. The rescue operation had been widely praised by local media and civilian authorities who viewed the military's response as exceptionally competent and professional. We have a situation where serious regulations appear to have been violated, but the results were unquestionably positive, Colonel Hayes confided to her investigation team during a closed session. Disciplinary action could be viewed as punishing success and discouraging the kind of initiative that saves lives during emergency situations. The investigation's preliminary conclusions suggested that unauthorized activities had probably occurred, but the evidence remained circumstantial, and the positive outcomes complicated any potential disciplinary responses. Elena's technical capabilities matched the requirements for successful supply delivery, but proving unauthorized equipment usage would require evidence that had been carefully concealed. Rodriguez faced intensive questioning about weapons, security, and inventory control procedures, but his documentation showed meticulous compliance with regulatory requirements that made unauthorized access appear impossible under normal circumstances. His experience with military bureaucracy enabled him to provide explanations that satisfied technical requirements while protecting personnel under his supervision. The investigation team recognized that Elena possessed the technical skills necessary for precision supply delivery, but regulatory restrictions theoretically prevented her from accessing the equipment required for such operations. The discrepancy between Elena's demonstrated capabilities and her current assignment restrictions created logical inconsistencies that investigators struggled to resolve. Colonel Hayes understood that the investigation faced institutional pressures that went beyond simple regulatory compliance. The successful rescue operation had demonstrated exceptional competence that reflected positively on Fort Henderson's capabilities, but acknowledging unauthorized activities would require disciplinary actions that could damage morale and operational effectiveness. The breakthrough in the investigation came from an unexpected source that transformed the entire nature of the inquiry, from disciplinary proceedings into institutional self-examination. Master Sergeant Robert Williams, the base's senior enlisted advisor, had been conducting his own parallel investigation through informal channels that revealed information far more significant than simple Regulatory violations during emergency operations. Williams had served at Fort Henderson for 6 years, giving him institutional memory that predated Elena's arrival and extended through multiple command changes that had shaped current personnel policies. His position provided access to classified personnel records and administrative documents that painted a disturbing picture of systematic discrimination disguised as routine military bureaucracy. Colonel Hayes, I need to brief you on information that fundamentally changes the scope of this investigation, Williams announced during a private meeting in the base commander's office. The evidence I've uncovered suggests that Sergeant Vasquez's current assignment represents institutional failure rather than appropriate personnel management. Williams presented documentation that had been carefully preserved through multiple administrative transitions, including Elena's original assignment orders, performance evaluations, and the classified reports from her court-martial proceedings that had never been properly reviewed by Fort Henderson's command structure. The materials revealed a pattern of exceptional competence that had been systematically ignored. Elena's combat record included commendations from Special Operations commanders, who praised her precision shooting abilities and tactical judgment in terms that exceeded routine military recognition. Letters of recommendation from field-grade officers described her marksmanship skills as exceptional and her decision-making capabilities as superior to personnel with significantly more experience. These performance evaluations describe capabilities that are being completely wasted in her current assignment. Williams continued, spreading documents across Colonel Hayes's desk that told a story of institutional blindness. We have the most qualified precision shooter on this base cleaning weapons, while lesser trained personnel struggle with advanced marksmanship instruction. The classified after-action reports from Elena's deployment in Kandahar province provided detailed accounts of her tactical contributions that had been omitted from her official personnel file. Multiple mission reports documented her ability to provide accurate intelligence, eliminate high-value targets, and prevent friendly fire casualties through superior marksmanship and tactical awareness. Colonel Hayes reviewed the documentation with growing recognition that Elena's reassignment had been based on incomplete information and institutional assumptions that ignored her demonstrated capabilities. The court-martial proceedings had focused narrowly on her refusal to follow orders, while completely overlooking the tactical accuracy of her assessment that had prevented civilian casualties. Master Sergeant Williams, this documentation suggests that Sergeant Vasquez was court-martialed for making the correct tactical decision under combat conditions, Colonel Hayes observed, studying reports that praised Elena's judgment and tactical competence. Her refusal to fire appears to have been based on accurate intelligence that contradicted flawed operational planning. The investigation team was expanded to include personnel with security clearances sufficient for reviewing classified materials related to Elena's previous assignments and the circumstances surrounding her reassignment to Fort Henderson. The broader inquiry revealed institutional failures that extended beyond simple personnel management into questions of military justice and operational effectiveness. Elena's original court-martial proceedings were re-examined by legal specialists, who recognized that her case had been adjudicated under political pressure rather than objective evaluation of tactical decision-making under combat conditions. The plea bargain that had resolved her case appeared to have been designed to protect higher-ranking officers rather than ensure appropriate justice for subordinate personnel. The evidence suggests that Sergeant Vasquez was punished for demonstrating superior tactical judgment that embarrassed field-grade officers who had made poor decisions based on inadequate intelligence, reported Major Jennifer Costa, the legal officer assigned to review Elena's case files. Her actions probably prevented an international incident while saving civilian lives. The precision supply delivery that had initiated the current investigation was recontextualized as evidence of Elena's exceptional capabilities rather than unauthorized weapons usage requiring disciplinary action. Her technical achievement under extreme conditions demonstrated exactly the kind of competence that military institutions should recognize and utilize rather than suppress through bureaucratic restrictions. Colonel Hayes authorized a comprehensive review of Elena's personnel file and current assignment appropriateness, recognizing that institutional credibility required acknowledgement of administrative errors that had wasted exceptional talent for 18 months. The review process would examine whether Elena's skills could be properly utilized within existing organizational structures. The rescued climbers provided testimonial evidence that emphasized the life-saving impact of Elena's unauthorized actions during the emergency operation. Their statements described the precision supply delivery as exceptional military competence that had enabled their survival under conditions that had defeated conventional rescue methods. The emergency supplies arrived exactly where we needed them with timing that prevented fatal hypothermia, testified David Martinez, one of the rescued climbers, during an official debriefing. Whoever accomplished that delivery demonstrated skill that exceeded anything we'd expected from military rescue operations. The investigation's focus shifted from punitive measures to institutional learning opportunities that could prevent similar waste of personnel capabilities in future assignments. Elena's case became a study in how bureaucratic processes could systematically underutilize exceptional talent while maintaining technical compliance with regulatory requirements. Fort Henderson's command structure faced questions about oversight. Mechanisms that had allowed exceptional personnel to languish in inappropriate assignments while operational units struggled with capability gaps that could have been filled through proper personnel utilization. The case highlighted institutional blindness that prioritized administrative convenience over mission effectiveness. Elena's technical expertise in ballistics, marksmanship, and tactical operations represented capabilities that were desperately needed by the Advanced Marksmanship Unit and other specialized training programs at Fort Henderson. Her current assignment in basic weapons maintenance constituted organizational malpractice that wasted taxpayer investment in advanced military training. The rescue operation's success provided irrefutable evidence of Elena's exceptional capabilities under extreme conditions, demonstrating competence that exceeded the performance of supposedly elite personnel who had been unable to contribute meaningfully to the emergency response. Her unauthorized actions had accomplished what authorized personnel could not achieve through conventional methods. Colonel Hayes faced institutional pressure to acknowledge administrative failures that had created Elena's situation while developing corrective measures that could restore appropriate utilization of her exceptional capabilities. The case required balancing military discipline with recognition that punishing success would discourage the kind of initiative that saves lives during emergency operations. The investigation's conclusions emphasized that Elena's actions during the rescue operation represented exactly the kind of competence and moral courage that military institutions should cultivate rather than suppress through bureaucratic punishment. Her willingness to exceed assigned duties to save lives demonstrated leadership qualities that deserved recognition rather than disciplinary action. Master Sergeant Williams recommended immediate reassignment of Elena to positions that could properly utilize her advanced capabilities, arguing that continued waste of her exceptional skills would constitute institutional failure that damaged operational effectiveness while demoralizing exceptional personnel throughout the command structure. The formal investigation report concluded that Elena's unauthorized actions had been justified by emergency circumstances and had demonstrated capabilities that had been systematically underutilized through inappropriate personnel assignment policies. The report recommended comprehensive review of personnel utilization practices to prevent similar institutional failures in future operations. The formal hearing convened at 0800 hours on a Thursday morning that would transform Elena's career from institutional exile to recognition of exceptional capability. Colonel Hayes presided over proceedings that had evolved from disciplinary inquiry into personnel reconsideration, with Master Sergeant Williams presenting evidence that challenged fundamental assumptions about Elena's qualifications and assignment appropriateness. This hearing will determine the appropriate response to recent events involving Sergeant Vasquez and the circumstances surrounding her current assignment. Colonel Hayes announced to the assembled panel of senior officers who would evaluate Elena's case. Evidence has emerged that requires comprehensive review of previous personnel decisions and their continuing validity. Elena sat in dress uniform at the respondent's table, flanked by Captain Sarah Mitchell, the defense attorney who had finally received access to classified materials that painted a dramatically different picture of Elena's combat record and the circumstances surrounding her court-martial. The legal officer's expression reflected professional satisfaction at finally being able to present a complete defense of her client's actions and capabilities. Major Jennifer Costa presented the legal review's findings that challenged the validity of Elena's original court-martial proceedings and the personnel restrictions that had followed her reassignment to Fort Henderson. The legal analysis revealed procedural irregularities and evidence suppression that had prevented proper evaluation of Elena's tactical decision-making during the Kandahar incident. The original court-martial proceedings were conducted under political pressure that prevented objective evaluation of Sergeant Vasquez's tactical judgment. Major Costa testified, presenting documentation that had been classified and sealed during Elena's original legal proceedings. Evidence now available demonstrates that her refusal to fire was based on accurate intelligence that prevented civilian casualties and potential international incidents. The classified after-action reports from Elena's deployment painted a picture of exceptional competence that contradicted the narrative presented during her court-martial. Multiple mission reports documented her tactical contributions, precision shooting abilities, and decision-making capabilities that had saved lives and enhanced mission effectiveness throughout her combat deployments. Master Sergeant Morrison, commander of the Advanced Marksmanship Unit, provided testimony that acknowledged the capability gaps within his organization that could be filled by personnel with Elena's exceptional qualifications. His assessment emphasized the technical expertise and combat experience that Elena possessed, which exceeded the qualifications of most personnel assigned to advanced marksmanship instruction. Sergeant Vasquez's technical knowledge and practical experience with precision shooting systems exceed those of anyone currently assigned to my unit, Morrison testified, his professional honesty overcoming institutional reluctance to acknowledge superior capabilities in supposedly unqualified personnel. Her expertise could significantly enhance our training effectiveness and operational readiness. The rescue operation's success provided compelling evidence of Elena's exceptional capabilities under extreme conditions that had defeated conventional rescue methods. Technical analysis of the precision supply delivery demonstrated mathematical accuracy and ballistics expertise that exceeded the performance standards of elite military marksmen operating under optimal conditions. Captain Rodriguez testified about Elena's performance during 18 months of armory duty, describing technical competence and professional dedication that had improved weapons maintenance standards throughout Fort Henderson. His assessment emphasized Elena's understanding of weapons systems that exceeded standard military technical knowledge by significant margins. Sergeant Vasquez has demonstrated technical expertise that surpasses anyone I've worked with during 23 years of military service, Rodriguez stated, presenting maintenance logs and technical documentation that supported his assessment. Her knowledge of weapons systems and ballistics principles exceeds that of personnel with advanced technical certifications and specialized training. The rescued climbers provided victim impact statements that emphasized the life-saving consequences of Elena's exceptional capabilities and willingness to exceed assigned duties during emergency operations. Their testimonies described the precision supply delivery as extraordinary military competence that had enabled survival under conditions that conventional rescue methods could not address. David Martinez, speaking from his hospital bed where he was recovering from hypothermia and climbing injuries, provided testimony through secure video link that described Elena's actions in terms that exceeded routine military recognition. The precision and timing of that supply delivery represented skill that saved both our lives when conventional rescue methods had failed. Colonel Hayes acknowledged that Elena's case represented institutional failure that had wasted exceptional capabilities while maintaining technical compliance with regulatory requirements. The hearings proceedings demonstrated how bureaucratic processes could systematically underutilize talented personnel through administrative decisions that ignored demonstrated competence. This hearing has revealed that Sergeant Vasquez possesses exceptional capabilities that have been systematically underutilized through personnel assignment decisions that appear to have been influenced by incomplete information and institutional bias. Colonel Hayes stated, summarizing evidence that challenged fundamental assumptions about Elena's qualifications. The panel's deliberations considered not only Elena's unauthorized actions during the rescue operation, but also the broader institutional questions raised by her 18-month assignment to duties that made no use of her advanced capabilities. The case highlighted systemic problems with personnel utilization that extended beyond individual disciplinary matters. Master Sergeant Williams recommended immediate reassignment of Elena to positions that could properly utilize her exceptional skills, arguing that continued waste of advanced capabilities would constitute organizational malpractice that damaged operational effectiveness while demoralizing talented personnel throughout the military. Sergeant Vasquez represents exactly the kind of exceptional competence that military institutions should cultivate and utilize, Williams testified, presenting personnel management recommendations that would restore appropriate utilization of Elena's capabilities. Her continued assignment to basic maintenance duties constitutes institutional failure that serves no valid organizational purpose. The formal findings acknowledge that Elena's actions during the rescue operation had been justified by emergency circumstances and had demonstrated capabilities that warranted immediate reassignment to positions requiring advanced marksmanship expertise. The panel concluded that her unauthorized weapons usage had been necessitated by institutional failures that had prevented proper utilization of available capabilities. Elena's security clearance was reinstated with immediate effect, restoring access to classified materials and specialized training programs that had been denied during her 18 months of administrative punishment. The clearance restoration acknowledged that her original court-martial had been based on incomplete information that did not warrant continued security restrictions. The advanced marksmanship unit received authorization to recruit Elena as senior instructor with responsibilities for developing advanced training curricula and mentoring personnel with precision shooting aspirations. Her assignment would utilize combat experience and technical expertise that exceeded the qualifications of existing instructional staff. Colonel Hayes announced Elena's immediate promotion to Staff Sergeant with retroactive effective date, acknowledging that her capabilities and performance had warranted advancement that had been prevented by administrative restrictions based on incomplete personnel file information. The promotion restored career progression that should have occurred through normal advancement procedures. The institutional changes implemented following Elena's case included enhanced oversight of personnel, assignment decisions, and mandatory review of cases where exceptional capabilities were being underutilized through administrative restrictions. The reforms were designed to prevent similar institutional failures that wasted taxpayer investment in advanced military training while demoralizing talented personnel. Elena's case became a training example for personnel management courses that emphasized the importance of proper capability utilization and the dangers of allowing bureaucratic processes to override mission effectiveness considerations. Her experience demonstrated how institutional bias could systematically waste exceptional talent through technically compliant but organizationally destructive personnel decisions. 6 months after her vindication and reassignment, Staff Sergeant Elena Vasquez stood before a formation of newly graduated sniper school candidates at the Advanced Marksmanship Training Center that had been constructed specifically to accommodate the expanded precision shooting programs she now supervised. The morning sun cast long shadows across the Montana landscape as she prepared to address the next generation of military marksmen who would benefit from institutional changes that her case had precipitated. The faces before her represented diverse backgrounds and experiences, but all shared the common aspiration to master precision shooting techniques that could mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure in combat environments. Among the candidates stood several female soldiers whose presence reflected policy changes that had removed barriers to advanced marksmanship training based on outdated assumptions about capability and suitability. Excellence in precision shooting is not determined by politics, prejudice, or institutional convenience, Elena began, her voice carrying clearly across the training area. It is measured by your ability to make accurate shots under impossible conditions when lives depend on. Your competence and moral courage guides your decision-making. Her uniform now displayed the ribbons and insignia appropriate to her restored rank and specialized qualifications, but more importantly, it represented institutional acknowledgement of capabilities that had been suppressed for nearly 2 years through bureaucratic indifference. The expert marksmanship badge on her chest gleamed beside decorations that told the story of combat service, moral courage, and professional vindication. Lieutenant Sarah Chun, one of the female candidates who had specifically requested assignment to Elena's training program, listened with the intense focus of someone who understood that exceptional opportunities required exceptional preparation. Chun's academic background included engineering degrees that complemented her military training, creating intellectual capabilities that Elena recognized as similar to her own combination of technical knowledge and practical experience. During my deployment in Afghanistan, I was required to make a decision that cost me nearly 2 years of career progression, but saved 7 civilian lives. Elena continued, sharing the story that had become central to her instructional philosophy. The choice between following orders and following conscience is one that many of you will face during your careers. When that moment arrives, remember that competence carries moral obligations that transcend institutional convenience. The Advanced Marksmanship Training Center featured state-of-the-art facilities that included environmental simulation chambers, advanced ballistics laboratories, and precision shooting ranges that extended to distances exceeding 1,500 meters. Elena had been instrumental in designing curricula that incorporated lessons learned from her combat experience and the institutional failures that had nearly destroyed her career. Master Sergeant Morrison, who now served as Elena's deputy in Kuwait, the expanded training program, had become one of her strongest advocates after witnessing her instructional capabilities and technical expertise. His initial skepticism about Elena's qualifications had been replaced by professional respect that acknowledged her superior knowledge of precision shooting principles and tactical applications. Captain Vasquez has transformed our training effectiveness through instructional methods that combine theoretical knowledge with practical experience that most of us lack, Morrison had reported during his quarterly evaluation of the program's performance. Her ability to diagnose shooting problems and develop corrective techniques exceeds anything I've encountered in 15 years of marksmanship instruction. Elena's promotion to captain had been announced 3 months earlier, acknowledging not only her exceptional performance as an instructor, but also her contributions to institutional reform that had improved personnel utilization throughout the military. Her advancement represented the career progression that should have occurred naturally if bureaucratic interference hadn't disrupted normal promotion processes. The training program under Elena's supervision had achieved performance metrics that exceeded previous standards by significant margins, with graduation rates improving while maintaining enhanced qualification requirements. Students trained under her methods demonstrated superior accuracy, better tactical judgment, and improved ability to perform under stress conditions that simulated combat environments. Colonel Patricia Hayes, who had overseen Elena's vindication and reassignment, served as guest speaker during the graduation ceremony that recognized the completion of advanced marksmanship training by the program's first class. Her remarks emphasized the institutional learning that had resulted from Elena's case and the policy changes implemented to prevent similar personnel management failures. The military's greatest strength lies in its ability to learn from mistakes and implement reforms that improve operational effectiveness. Colonel Hayes addressed the assembled graduates and their families. Captain Vasquez's experience taught us that exceptional capabilities must be recognized and utilized regardless of administrative complications or institutional resistance to change. Elena's personal weapons collection had been expanded to include cutting-edge precision rifles and advanced optics systems that represented the latest developments in military marksmanship technology. Her technical expertise enabled her to evaluate new equipment and develop training protocols that maximize the effectiveness of emerging weapon systems and tactical techniques. The rescued climbers, David Martinez and his climbing partner James Sullivan, had become advocates for military precision shooting programs after experiencing firsthand the life-saving capabilities that Elena's skills represented. Their testimonials were incorporated into recruitment materials that attracted qualified candidates who might not have otherwise considered careers in military marksmanship. The precision and timing of Captain Vasquez's supply delivery represented skill that exceeded anything we'd imagined possible under those conditions. Martinez had stated during a press conference that highlighted the military's advanced capabilities. Her expertise saved our lives when conventional rescue methods had failed completely. Elena's influence extended beyond individual instruction to institutional policy development that addressed systemic problems with personnel management and CAPABILITY utilization. Her recommendations had been incorporated into military regulations that prevented qualified personnel from being sidelined through administrative punishment that ignored demonstrated competence and professional potential. The mentorship program that Elena established connected experienced precision shooters with junior personnel who showed promise for advanced marksmanship training. Her approach emphasized moral courage alongside technical competence, understanding that precision shooting in military environments required ethical judgment that transcended mere mechanical skill. Lieutenant Chun had emerged as one of Elena's most promising students, demonstrating intellectual capabilities and technical aptitude that reminded Elena of her own early development as a precision shooter. Chun's academic background provided mathematical foundations that accelerated her understanding of ballistics principles and environmental factors that influenced shooting accuracy. Captain Vasquez has taught me that precision shooting is both art and science, requiring technical mastery combined with moral clarity about when and how to employ lethal capabilities. Chun reflected during an interview about her training experience. Her instruction emphasizes that exceptional skill carries exceptional responsibility for its appropriate use. Elena's case had become a case study in military leadership courses that examined the intersection of moral courage, professional competence, and institutional resistance to change. Her experience demonstrated how individual excellence could challenge systemic problems while providing examples of ethical leadership under extreme pressure. The Advanced Marksmanship Training Center's Research Division, under Elena's supervision, conducted studies on precision shooting, techniques that contributed to military doctrine development and equipment acquisition decisions. Her combat experience provided practical insights that enhanced theoretical research conducted by academic institutions and defense contractors. The international recognition of Elena's capabilities had resulted in invitations to participate in multinational training exercises and professional conferences, where her expertise contributed to allied military cooperation and shared learning about precision shooting applications. Her reputation extended beyond domestic military circles to include international special operations communities. Elena's personal satisfaction came not from career advancement or professional recognition, but from the knowledge that her experience had created opportunities for others who might have faced similar institutional obstacles. The female soldiers now entering precision shooting programs benefited from policy changes and cultural shifts that her case had precipitated. The greatest victory is not personal vindication, but institutional change that prevents others from experiencing the waste and frustration that I endured, Elena explained during a mentorship session with junior female soldiers who sought guidance about career development in traditionally male-dominated military specialties. The memorial wall in Elena's office displayed photographs and letters from soldiers whose lives had been saved through precise shooting techniques learned in her training programs. Their testimonials represented the ultimate measure of success for someone whose skills had been developed through combat experience and refined through institutional struggle that had nearly destroyed her career. Elena's story continued to evolve as she shaped the next generation of military marksmen, while contributing to institutional reforms that improved personnel utilization and operational effectiveness. Her legacy would be measured not only through personal achievement, but through systemic changes that ensured exceptional capabilities would be recognized and utilized rather than suppressed through bureaucratic indifference. The woman who had been relegated to cleaning weapons while others trained with systems, she understood better than anyone had become the instructor who prepared the military's most skilled precision shooters for combat operations where lives depended on accuracy, judgment, and moral courage. Her journey from institutional exile to professional leadership demonstrated that competence ultimately transcends politics, that truth eventually overcomes prejudice, and that exceptional individuals can create lasting change through persistence, skill, and unwavering commitment to excellence. 3 years after her vindication, Captain Elena Vasquez received an unexpected phone call that would bring her story full circle in the most remarkable way imaginable. The voice on the other end belonged to Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Thompson, the same officer whose poor judgment in Kandahar had derailed her career and whose institutional protection had kept her buried in the armory for 18 months. "Captain Vasquez, this is Colonel Thompson calling from the Pentagon." His voice carried a humility that she'd never heard during their previous interactions. "I'm requesting your professional consultation on a matter of critical importance to Special Operations Command." Thompson explained that he'd been tasked with developing new rules of engagement for precision shooting operations in complex urban environments where civilian populations created moral and tactical challenges similar to those Elena had faced in Kandahar. The military had finally recognized that her decision-making during that controversial mission represented exactly the kind of ethical judgment they needed to institutionalize. "Captain, your refusal to fire in Kandahar has become a case study in military ethics courses throughout the special operations community," Thompson continued, his admission representing a complete reversal of his previous position. "We need officers who understand that sometimes the most courageous action is the decision not to pull the trigger." Elena felt a profound sense of closure as she listened to Thompson's request for her expertise. The same judgment that had nearly destroyed her career was now being sought by the institution that had punished her for demonstrating moral courage under impossible circumstances. Her vindication was complete, but more importantly, her experience would help prevent other soldiers from facing similar ethical dilemmas without institutional support. Colonel Thompson, I'll be happy to contribute to doctrine development that helps soldiers make ethical decisions under combat conditions. Elena replied, her voice carrying the professional composure that had sustained her through years of institutional struggle. But I have one condition. Any training program must emphasize that following conscience sometimes requires challenging authority, even when that challenge carries personal costs. The conversation ended with Thompson's agreement to Elena's terms and his acknowledgement that her case had forced the military to examine how institutional pride could interfere with mission effectiveness and ethical decision-making. Her story had become more than personal vindication. It had catalyzed systemic change that would benefit generations of soldiers facing similar moral challenges. Later that evening, Elena stood on the observation deck of the Advanced Marksmanship Training Center, watching the sun set over the Montana mountains that had witnessed her journey from exile to leadership. The rescued climbers had sent another letter thanking her for the precision supply delivery that had saved their lives. But Elena knew that her greatest achievement was the institutional change that her experience had created. Lieutenant Chun approached carrying Elena's personal Barrett M82, the rifle that had been locked away for 18 months, but now served as her primary instructional tool. Captain, the evening precision shooting class is ready for your ballistics demonstration. The new recruits are eager to learn from someone who's proven that skill and conscience can coexist. Elena accepted the rifle with the same reverence she'd felt during that desperate morning when she defied regulations to save lives. The weapon felt like an extension of her moral convictions, a tool that could preserve life as effectively as it could take it, depending on the wisdom and courage of the person wielding it. As she prepared for the evening instruction, Elena reflected on how her story demonstrated that exceptional individuals could overcome institutional obstacles through persistence, competence, and unwavering commitment to doing what's right regardless of personal consequences. Her journey from the woman they wouldn't trust with wings to the leader who shaped military ethics had proven that truth eventually triumphs over politics, that skill transcends prejudice, and that moral courage creates lasting change. Thank you for watching this incredible story of perseverance, skill, and moral courage. Elena's journey reminds us that sometimes the most qualified person is the one everyone overlooks, and that true strength lies in doing what's right, even when it costs everything. If this story inspired you, please hit that subscribe button and join our community of viewers who believe in the power of human determination. Ring the notification bell so you never miss our latest stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. What other stories of hidden heroes would you like us to tell? Drop your suggestions in the comments below. We love hearing from our amazing viewers around the world. Until next time, remember, your moment to prove your worth is coming. When it arrives, be ready.